There was a time when power said, "You must." It punished, surveilled, disciplined. But now, the command has evolved. It smiles. It whispers softly, "You can." Freedom became the new form of control. No longer chains, but possibilities. No longer prisons, but goals. And in the name of potential, we've become our own overseers. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls it the society of performance, a world where each of us is both master and slave, CEO of our own exhaustion. We no longer obey, we self-optimize. The new morality is efficiency. The new sin is rest. We call it freedom, but it's a freedom that never ends, a freedom that doesn't know how to stop. The body, the mind, the soul, all turned into tools of productivity. Every moment must have a return. Every silence must be filled. Every life must be a brand. We curate ourselves. We edit our identities like content. We post, therefore we are. Our existence becomes a feed, scrollable, comparable, measurable. Even our emotions are optimized, happiness on demand, motivation as a lifestyle, positivity as a moral duty. Think positive, be grateful, smile more. But what if this constant yes is the most violent form of denial? Because the system of positivity has no room for weakness, no room for pause, no room for being human. When sadness appears, we delete it. When fatigue rises, we caffeinate it. But the real enemy now is not outside. It's internal. It's the neuron, the thought, the self that won't stop performing. We've replaced external repression with internal pressure. The whip is gone, but the schedule remains. And the result is not liberation, but a slow, invisible collapse. A fatigue that seeps through every achievement, every success story, every motivational quote. The smile cracks. The light flickers. Behind the yes of the digital age, there's a silent scream. The exhaustion of the self that can no longer say no. Somewhere along the digital highway, value lost its weight. It stopped being something we felt and became something we could count. Likes, followers, views, engagement. Tiny, glowing numbers that pretend to measure our existence. The soul has become a data set, our dignity, a spreadsheet. What once belonged to the realm of meaning is now processed through metrics. We used to ask, "Who am I?" Now we ask, "How am I performing?" We no longer live to be. We live to be seen. The economy of attention became the religion of the self. Each click, a prayer for validation. Each post, a confession of insecurity disguised as confidence. And even when the numbers rise, it never feels enough. Because every goal achieved instantly self-destructs. The pleasure lasts seconds, then resets. We move the finish line further ahead, again and again, until there's no finish line left. The system never lets us arrive, and because arrival means silence. And silence doesn't sell. So it feeds us the same old promise, disguised as progress. School, job, success, happiness. But the graph never stabilizes. The arrow must always go up. And in this endless ascent, we fall deeper into ourselves. We feel perpetually behind, as if life were an update we forgot to install. As if meaning were a notification we keep missing. And so we run. We chase the next milestone, the next upgrade, the next illusion of completion. But there is no completion, only motion, only exhaustion. We are marathoners of the void, running through an infinite feed, chasing the ghost of success. This is the hidden face of modern nihilism. Not despair, but acceleration. Not emptiness, but overproduction. We call it ambition. We call it hustle. But it's just the will to fill a hole that keeps getting deeper. The burnout isn't the failure of the system. It's its proof of function. Because a tired soul buys more, posts more, works more to feel alive again. And so the machine keeps running, powered by our fatigue, by the infinite labor of trying to justify our own existence. The digital world never sleeps. Its pulse is constant, its rhythm endless. Data flows without pause, feeds, refresh without rest. It's a time that never breathes, but our bodies were not built for this kind of eternity. We are made of cycles, of dawn and dusk, of hunger and silence, of beating hearts that need to stop. Sometimes, just to remember they're alive. The body moves in spirals, the machine moves in lines. And somewhere between the curve and the straight edge, a fracture opens. We now live inside a time the body can no longer understand. The clock of silicon has replaced the clock of blood. Notifications replaced the pulse. The heartbeat of the algorithm replaced the rhythm of nature. And the body, that ancient analog creature, has begun to protest. It speaks in the only language left to it: insomnia, anxiety, fatigue. They are not malfunctions. They are messages. The symptoms are the soul's way of saying, I can't keep up with this timeline. Our bodies, exhausted and glitching, have become the last forms of resistance. They refuse to sync with the machine. They crash. They slow down. They demand the sacred act of doing nothing. Fatigue is the body's rebellion, a soft revolution against the cult of continuity, a sacred bug in the operating system of speed. Because the modern virus is acceleration, the addiction to movement, to faster, newer, more. We scroll as if afraid of stillness. We run not toward anything, but away from the terror of stopping. And yet, there was once a time when slowness was beautiful, when waiting was holy. When boredom was a doorway to imagination, we lost that beauty. We outsourced our patience to algorithms, but some fragments remain, in art, in music, in cinema. A long take that doesn't cut, a brushstroke that lingers, a moment that dares to breathe. Art became our refuge from the tempo of the network, a sanctuary where time bends back to human scale. Because the algorithm wants velocity, but the soul wants rhythm. And maybe, to heal the fatigue of this century, we must learn again how to move at the speed of life. Our age doesn't lack information. It drowns in it. Every second, a new update. Every thought, interrupted by another. Every silence, colonized by noise. The human mind, once a space of contemplation, has become a processor under constant overload. We are overstimulated to the point of blindness. Because, as the ancient phrase says, too much light blinds. We wanted enlightenment, but ended up with glare. Our eyes are open, yet we see nothing. The excess of information became a new form of ignorance. Not the absence of knowledge, but its implosion, a collapse under the weight of too much meaning, too fast, too soon. Our attention, once a sacred flame, is now a flicker between tabs. The mind scrolls faster than it thinks. The world feels fragmented, because our cognition is too. And then, inevitably, comes the exhaustion. That quiet mental ache that says, enough. But maybe that exhaustion isn't a sign of weakness. Maybe it's intelligence trying to save itself. Because fatigue is also a language. It's the way the mind says, there is something you haven't understood yet. A hidden signal from consciousness that demands stillness, not stimulation. The creative fatigue, that strange moment when the soul refuses to produce, isn't laziness. It's the beginning of wisdom. It's the refusal to keep creating without understanding. Every collapse hides a message. Every shutdown is a form of insight. The mind, like the body, needs to crash so that meaning can be reorganized, so that truth can re-emerge from the debris of overload. In this sense, fatigue becomes epistemological, a method of knowing. To pause, to stop, to rest, is not to give up, but to finally see. Because lucidity doesn't come from constant light, it comes from contrast, from the shadows that reveal the shape of things. The glitch, the error, the crash, they are not failures of intelligence. They are its most human moments. Moments when the system halts, and for a brief instant, consciousness looks at itself, naked, tired, and utterly awake. There comes a point in the performance when even success starts to feel heavy. You achieve everything you were told to chase. The numbers go up, The world applauds, and yet somewhere deep inside, something breaks. When success loses its meaning, the spirit begins to collapse. The burnout isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. It's the soul's way of grieving the death of a false faith, the belief that constant achievement could fill the silence of existence. The burnout is not just exhaustion, it's mourning. A funeral for the illusion that performance equals purpose. And from that collapse, a strange kind of initiation begins. Because every deep exhaustion is a threshold. It's the body's way of saying, stop pretending you know what to do. It's life whispering, surrender. Surrender, not as defeat, but as awakening. Maybe the true act of awakening isn't to open our eyes, but to close them without fear. To stop forcing the flow and finally feel carried by it. The mystics called it contemplation. The Taoists called it Wu Wei, action without effort, movement without pushing, being without striving. In a world obsessed with doing, the art of not doing is revolutionary. To pause, to breathe, to let things be. This is not laziness, it's alignment. The universe itself rests, stars burn, then fade, oceans rise, then sleep. Why should we believe that the human soul is the only thing that must never stop? The power of the negative, the emptiness we fear so much, is not destruction. It's renewal. The silence after collapse is not death. It's space. And in that space, something sacred begins to reassemble. Because sometimes, the only way to find the divine is to be too tired to keep searching for it. And in that final, luminous exhaustion, we stop chasing light and become it. There's a quiet beauty in exhaustion, a strange poetry in collapse. The tired body, the slow breath, the eyes that have seen too much, they reveal something the polished world tries to hide, our limits. In an age addicted to filters and upgrades, imperfection becomes subversive. A wrinkle, a pause, a sigh. They are no longer flaws, but gestures of truth. The tired body is a work of art, a living sculpture carved by the friction of existence. Every scar, every hesitation, every silence. They tell the story of what it means to be human, because there's a difference between the artificial glow of performance and the quiet light of authenticity. The first blinds, the second illuminates from within. We've been taught to hide our fatigue, to mask it behind productivity and positivity. But maybe beauty now lives precisely in what refuses to perform. The stillness, the slowness, the silence. That's where the soul catches up to itself. That's where time regains its depth. Yet we live in a smooth society, as Han calls it, a world without edges, without tragedy, without pain. Everything is easy, fluid, optimized, and therefore flat. Our aesthetics have lost their pathos. We've anesthetized the drama that once gave life its depth. We deleted failure. We erased boredom. We photoshopped the shadows out of our being. But what remains of beauty when nothing hurts anymore? Perhaps to restore depth, we must revalue what we've discarded, the error, the pause, the imperfection. Because only through contrast does meaning acquire dimension. Only through suffering does tenderness become real. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han once wrote, "The salvation of the beautiful, beauty that doesn't serve, beauty that simply is." In a world obsessed with utility, art becomes the last sanctuary of the useless, and therefore the most sacred. Art doesn't fix exhaustion. It listens to it. It gives form to what cannot be said. It transforms fatigue into light and silence into presence. To contemplate beauty is to resist the algorithmic tempo, to sit still in front of something that doesn't demand, doesn't sell, doesn't perform. That's a quiet act of rebellion. Because in the end, the aesthetic of fatigue is not about despair, it's about dignity. It's the art of being human in a world that forgot how to stop. Every collapse needs two voices, one to diagnose and one to heal. Byung-Chul Han saw the sickness. He called it the exhaustion of unlimited freedom, a world where the command is no longer obey, but achieve, where the human being, believing itself free, is trapped inside the infinite loop of its own potential. Viktor Frankl, on the other hand, offered the antidote. He called it the will to meaning. For him, the cure is not to perform, but to transcend the self, to orient life towards something greater than achievement. Han shows us the cage, Frankl, the door. Both speak of the same wound, a spirit that has forgotten its why. The will to perform and the will to find meaning are born from the same sacred impulse, the desire to justify existence, to feel that our being matters. But when the energy of meaning is hijacked by the machinery of performance, it mutates. The spiritual drive turns into self-exploitation. The search for purpose becomes a productivity report. That's where burnout is born, in the distortion of transcendence. We work not to live, but to prove we deserve to. We strive not to serve something higher, but to silence the fear that nothing matters. The cure, then, is not to do less, but to remember why we do anything at all. Frankl taught that meaning is never a goal. It's a direction, an orientation of the soul. It's not a trophy to earn, but a compass that keeps us human. To rediscover meaning is to shift the axis from performance to presence, from striving to listening, from achievement to alignment. And perhaps that's why rest has become revolutionary, because to rest is to declare that your worth is not dependent on output. Resting, not as a break from life, but as a way of being in it. A philosophical verb, a spiritual rebellion. The pause is where being rewrites itself, where the soul steps out of the algorithm and remembers its own syntax. Han shows us the exhaustion of freedom without limits. Frankl reminds us that freedom without meaning is just noise. Together, they draw a bridge, from performance to presence, from burnout to breath, from doing to being. And maybe that bridge is not made of effort, but of silence. Every collapse hides a threshold. To reach exhaustion is not to fail. It's to arrive at the frontier of transformation. We spend our lives trying to avoid fatigue. We treat tiredness as a malfunction, something to medicate, to optimize, to overcome. But what if fatigue is not the end of the road, but the initiation itself? The true ritual of passage begins when the performance dies, when the persona we've built, that polished, efficient version of ourselves, finally runs out of energy to pretend. To cross the desert of exhaustion without anesthetizing it is a rare act of courage. Because on the other side of that silence, something ancient begins to stir. When the self that performs dissolves, the self that is finally breathes. We remember how to exist without having to justify it. No goals, no metrics, no reasons, just presence. There is a moment after every burnout when the noise stops. The notifications fade, the inner dialogue quiets down, and in that strange stillness, you hear something subtle, something that was always there beneath the static. The sound of being itself. When the noise ceases, the self begins to speak. The exhaustion opens the portal of listening. The sound of the pause, that sacred, barely audible rhythm, is the beginning of consciousness. It's as if reality finally whispers, "Now that you've stopped trying to control me, can you hear me?" First, the body shuts down. Then, the mind falls silent. And in that silence, something awakens. It's not a new idea. It's not motivation. It's not even hope. It's awareness, raw, simple, undecorated by productivity or purpose. To grow tired, truly tired, is to be stripped of illusion. It's the moment when the human system, after endless attempts to run faster than itself, returns to alignment. The fatigue becomes a teacher. The silence becomes language. And the act of resting becomes the first gesture of enlightenment. At the end of all this, the question is no longer, why are we tired? But what is our tiredness trying to say? Because fatigue is not just a symptom, it's a form of communication, its existence speaking through the body, through the mind, through the soul. The fatigue of the body reveals a dissonance with time itself, our biological rhythm colliding with the machine's endless tempo. It's the reminder that we are not clocks, but creatures. The fatigue of the mind reveals the collapse of meaning, the overload of light that blinds, the saturation of noise that empties. It's the mind confessing it can no longer pretend to know. And the fatigue of the soul, that quiet, sacred exhaustion that no sleep can fix, reveals the final message, that silence is not absence, but invitation. The body speaks, slow down. The mind pleads, simplify. The soul whispers, listen. Perhaps that's what awakening truly means. Not opening our eyes to a brighter world, but finally resting in the one that is. Maybe enlightenment is not to wake up, but to rest for the first time in our own being. When we stop running, the breath returns. When we stop forcing, the rhythm reappears. When we stop searching, the silence turns into presence. And in that silence, something dawns. The exhaustion transforms into light, into clarity, into a kind of peace that doesn't need explanation. Because the soul that has crossed the desert of fatigue no longer seeks meaning. It becomes it. The glitch resolves, the screen fades to black, and for the first time after so much noise, we can finally hear it, the soft hum of existence rebooting.